Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Grown Folks Business on a Thursday evening, as we usually are. Want to give a shout out to the people that able to attend tonight. We missing some familiar faces, and I was hopeful that they would make it because I wanted to have a good balance of representation for tonight's topic. But first and foremost, thanks, Danya, for keeping us going as you always do. Celeste, glad you could make it. Bob, as always, appreciate your presence, and Lisa, thanks for making it back here. It's been a couple weeks, but I'm glad to see you. I think we may have somebody else joining us, which would be awesome, but we'll see how that goes if technical uh, difficulties don't last. So tonight's topic is who really cares? What messages are we sending black males, and who is the sender? I think it's pretty cut and dry. The way it's phrased is a bunch of questions in that topic, but I think they're necessary. They need to be asked. We're at a state where I believe something's gonna just not be good for black men in this society if we keep going this path. Andre, glad you can make it in. Definitely welcome the presence of another black man for tonight's topic. So Lisa got you figuring out how the bells and the whistles are clicking on the link. So glad you could make it, man. And I know you'll contribute greatly. We just have some open dialogue here. It's a safe place. But tonight's topic is who really cares? What messages are we sending black males, and who is the sender? So first and foremost, this is something that's always near and dear to me, not just because I'm a black male, but because I'm an observer of society and I'm a historian. I pay attention to certain things throughout the course of our existence, primarily Black American existence. And man, black men been catching hell for a long time, and I don't think the powers that be, so to speak, do us any uh, service by how we portray, how we're depicted, and that's pretty much the topic of my research on top of everything else. So, of course, one of the catalysts for this week's topic is the new Ja Morant situation. I don't keep up with basketball like I used to, but it's hard to miss this guy because this is the second instance of him brandishing a weapon of some sort in a, I guess, careless or reckless way is what's been described. But he's not the whole focus. Feel free, we can comment on some of that, but I'm more concerned with how uh, the message of black men is being communicated to our society in mass. So I was prompted by the dialogue about his latest incident, the back and forth, the weird justifications. And I say weird because there's a lot of comparisons to things that I don't think necessarily fit. There's a lot of young, there's a lot of he didn't break the law. There's a lot of things that just kind of, I think, focus more on justifying something that is not beneficial to the whole of black males in our society. And that's what I want to kind of unpack. I hope all of that resonated. I want to begin tonight's show with a couple of clips. They should not take any more than 4 minutes or so. And then I'll go directly to my first question. But first, I'm going to play a couple of clips. So bear with me as I flip over to that. Wow. Something's changed, but I'm going to figure it out. Here we go.
Had to have so much security. There was not enough. I was swarmed. It's all on video. Everyone can see this. But I will tell you what's on video is Jamal Bowman shouting at the top of his lungs, cursing, calling me a horrible, calling me a white supremacist, which I take great offense to. That is like calling a person of color the N-word, which should never happen. Calling me a white supremacist is equal to that, and that is wrong. Jamal Bowman was down there cursing at me, telling me to get the F out of there. And he was leading the mob right outside the vehicle I was sitting in. We have this all on video. And then on the Capitol steps yesterday, he was the one that approached me. Even CNN reported that. Yelling, shouting, raising his voice. He has aggressive His physical mannerisms are aggressive, and he just recently shoved Thomas Massey at just outside the House chamber. I think there's a lot of concern about Jamal Bowman. So, and I am concerned about it. I feel threatened by him. He not only led a mob there, but his boisterous lies. And I'll tell you another thing he said outside there. He was saying, save your party. I kept telling him, no, save the country. It's not about political parties. We shouldn't care about political parties. We should care about the country, because no matter what our political beliefs are, Jamal Bowman, I don't know what his political beliefs are. I know what mine are, but we both swore an oath to serve the country here in Congress as representatives. So I am very concerned about Jamal Bowman, and he's someone that people should watch.
Majority Taylor Greene in her press conference this morning said something incredibly dangerous and incredibly reckless about me, talking about my demeanor as being aggressive and saying that she feels intimidated by me. Unfortunately, this country has a history of characterizing Black men who are outspoken, who stand their ground, and who push back as being threatening or intimidating. So she's not even using a dog whistle. She's using a bullhorn to put a target on my back to the people that she refers to as MAGA people out there who might want to cause harm. This is the same reason why Mike Brown was killed. This is one of the reasons why Emmett Till was killed. And throughout history, Black men have continued to be characterized as aggressive because, one, because of our skin color, but two, because we happen to be outspoken and passionate about certain issues. What you said was racist. It's reckless and dangerous what she said. Okay? Characterizing me in my interaction with her yesterday, I never invaded her personal space. I was laughing and gregarious the entire time. How was that intimidating? What was intimidating about that? So she goes to a press conference today and say that she's intimidated by me and my mannerisms are aggressive. Anyone who's interacted with me, anyone who knows me, even reporters here, know I'm middle school principal energy. I'm always loving and engaging and friendly, except when kids are being killed in our streets. Everyone should be outraged about that. So do not conflate what my engagement with Representative Massey with my engagement with her yesterday was completely different. But she knows what she's doing when she does that. And unfortunately, white supremacists historically, this is what they do. They try to dehumanize Black people, Black skin, and the Black humanity so that they can be, more likely to be targeted for harm. So I just wanted to address that. And I was surprised that no one asked me about this when I first came to the media scrub. No one asked me directly about my reaction to her press conference. Framed it in all these other ways. And then went to Massey. That was 3 weeks ago, a month ago. We're talking about what happened yesterday and what happened this morning, and what she did was dangerous and reckless. I just wanted to say that to y'all for the record. Majority Taylor Greene in her press.
All right. So primarily, I want to make it clear again that this is not the Jay Dwayne. Now, I was gonna say John Morant, but glad you could make it, man. Glad you could get here. So yeah, I got all I need in terms of Black male representation, and I'm glad to have you guys because I want to hear from everyone, but I definitely want to hear you guys take. And just keep in mind, I got another meeting to get to after the show. So at 8, I want to be out. I want to get everybody's thoughts and include my own. So I'm gonna ask this first question, and it's in immediate reflection of what we just watched, because I think that's what we're up against to a high degree and have been for such a long time. Who really cares? What messages are we sending Black males, and who is the sender? This whole topic kind of comes from where he had to respond to something that wasn't being asked, although he had been characterized a certain way by the other lady who spoke so dangerously of him. So the first question is, what are the societal ramifications of the perpetuation of stereotypes concerning Black men? That's one that you can answer easily based on what he was sharing when he mentioned Mike Brown, Emmett Till, Trayvon Martin, all of these Black men who have endured and encountered and not survived sometimes the violence. But I also throw in this caveat. that I think exists as a ramification is the lack of care and specificity associated with what Black men have endured. Really quickly, just to fully frame this, I went to a conference Monday in Winston-Salem. Heather McGee spoke on her book. Uh, book is called, gosh, it's escaping me at the moment. Somebody knows, please say. The Sum of Us. That's it. The Sum of Us. So it is a really good work, and she spoke very well about the book. And there was one point where she was mentioning 2020, summer of 2020, and she mentioned the Tulsa massacre. In both instances, she unpacked a little bit about those things, but she was talking about the significant energies that were either suppressed and lost because Tulsa massacre was largely covered up, or the way that our country responded to what happened in 2020. But in both instances, she didn't talk about exactly what occurred. Both instances occurred and were galvanizing because they incorporated Black men in some capacity in a way that caused an extreme backlash or reaction. So in Tulsa, gentleman, from what we understand, bumped into a white woman on the elevator. His name was Dick Rowland, if I'm not mistaken, and that just was the straw that broke the camel's back as far as the contention that existed in Tulsa. 100 years later, just basically, George Floyd's being kneeled on and is captured on video, and he dies, and there's a visceral reaction from the public. But that's at the behest of two Black men encountering something that is based on what I think is this perception that exists. So I say all that to say, I want a good, robust discussion. I want to start with the Black men on the call. Andre, it just goes with the flow here. So I'm going to start with Jay Dwayne. He's a veteran of the space. So then I'll come to Andre, and then we'll make our way around the space and get some good feedback, I hope. So what are the societal ramifications of the perpetuation? What are the societal ramifications of the perpetuation of stereotypes concerning Black men? Whew. All right, Jay, go for it, man.
I ain't even gonna say that, but man, I will honestly say, when you were talking in your introduction and your experiences, it's recklessness, and it's at the expense of Black men, and it has always been at the expense of Black men, and a lot of people don't understand that. And so when we hear statements, we are the demographic. When certain statements are made, they last for a very long time, even when proven innocent. We're the only demographic that has been shown, not only from statistics from a crime report perspective, but even with employment statistics. Stigmas stay with us longer. So when a person is able to perpetuate or co-sign a current stigma, that stays with when I'm saying our community in this instance, the Black male community, a whole lot longer than any other place. And this infuriates me to so many different ways because it's also blinding. When a stereotype has been manifested and has been seen as a societal norm, it blinds society from seeing the true works and the true efforts of that demographic, and what they will spew out is whatever the societal norm or what is marginally accepted within that community. And it's reckless.
Well said. I have absolutely no response, and that's not like me. So I appreciate that, man. That was very, very well said. Andre, what are your thoughts on the matter? What are the societal ramifications of the perpetuation of stereotypes concerning Black men?
Well, I guess I would start by saying to the brother who just spoke, first of all, well said. A lot of that stuff I would have said. I guess I would start with what they do is they impose illegitimate limitations on people that are not factual. I'll start with that. And it basically tries to tattoo us or badge us with something that's not suited to each individual. Stereotypes sort of try to paint a picture of a group as a whole, and it sort of ignores individual people and who you are as a man and as a human. And I know this particular conversation, we're talking about stereotypes on us, particularly in this conversation, but take one step back. It's you got Lisa, who I know invited me to join this call. There's also equal stereotypes on towards Black women, towards women in general, towards a whole bunch of things. So overall, though, what they do is they limit us economically, socially, educationally. Stereotypes. Oh, you're not going to be good in math. I know there's somebody on the call here who's got a child who's got a master's degree in math, things of that nature. But it's literally across the board, right? It limits our ability to buy homes, buy property, accumulate wealth. You walk into an area to get a bank loan to start a business, or maybe you want to move, live, achieve home ownership. Stereotypes, unfortunately, might close those doors for you before you can even get a chance to walk in, before somebody even understands who you are as a human, to show that you have you have what it takes to fulfill whatever obligation, either from paying a mortgage or whatever it is. So it's a detriment overall. I do think that is something that can be overcome, but I think for the purpose of this conversation, I think the question goes, but why should we have to overcome these stereotypes that continue to be placed upon us in 2023? That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's the cake is baked, and it's just all those ingredients are mixed in, and it's hard to separate them once you get that thing put together. The eggs and the flour and everything, it makes a wonderful cake. But in this case, it's just one that it's hard for us to extract ourselves from a legacy of being characterized a certain way, and easily it being reminded to society, oh yeah, those guys are dangerous. Those guys are, we have to look at them kind of special. Lisa, what are your thoughts? You got some sons you think about, I'm sure.
Oh man, you're right. I didn't even look at your subject matter. I just want to show up, right? And you are right in my vein. And Andre alluded to the fact that my son has a degree in math, and that is a challenge from all of his life. So let's just talk about the first one. I remember Jeffrey in first grade. He had a white older lady teacher that wanted to hold him back in first grade because she said that that he got so easily distracted, and then he might just start singing to himself. So it's got to be something wrong. And I was like, no, maybe you're boring him. Right. So I had to spend so much time like just wrapped around this little boy from that period of time, constantly thwarting these things that would get imposed upon him. He played in Little League, everybody white. That's like, okay, he's got to be able to do this because of the stereotype about he's only athletic, right? Those types of things. And even though he's 31 now, even when he got that math degree, he was like, yeah, it just don't feel, it don't feel as celebratory. And the sludge, the hard work that he had to do to constantly prove his worthiness, whether in action or deed, whether outright or not, that just breaks my heart. That's just number one. Then we get to number two, it's more of the same. He came home from school in sixth grade. He was going to ACOC, and he came home and he was like, "Ma, they want to put me in this math class that," he said, it's a lower level. It wasn't a lower level, it's average level. But thank God, like Jeremy was like on it. He was like, but they said this is the criteria, and I meet that criteria for that other level. This sixth grader had to fight to be where he was supposed to be because, well, maybe, but not really. And then the younger one, it was like, oh, he's special because he appeared smart and he's a genius. Why is that special? I mean, he is special, but so the constant barrage of this is weird or wow. And watching that happen to my sons, it was like painful and like, what do I do? So I've just been like this all the time, like as a mom. And Jeremy, that second one, he had left me a voice message in 21 that I have kept and listened to sometimes when I'm feeling a little low. He was like, Mom, I just want you to know, it ain't you not letting us watch TV. It ain't you making us study hard. It ain't you not letting us drink soda. It's that you always showed up for us. Like, but can I tell you, it's still, to Andre's point, Jay Dwayne's point, it's still so prevalent. And I know I'm tired. I can't imagine what you guys are like being in that skin and like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. So God bless you. I love you.
Appreciate that. Feel that love. Thanks, Lisa. Bob, what are your thoughts on the topic? And Lisa, I always appreciate your willingness to share to that level. And your love does mean a lot. I appreciate that. It is a tough thing to endure. You got the question, Bob, or you need me to repeat it?
Yeah. So just relative to the Marjorie Taylor Greene clips, I'm not sure reckless is the right word, because she knew exactly what she was doing, and she was very intentional with what she was doing. And if the mission is to build community, to build inclusiveness, to build our society and our culture, she's being reckless. But she's not being reckless relative to her intention. She's being very intentional. She knows exactly what she's doing. She is resurrecting stereotypes. She is resurrecting and articulating things that things that historically have been used to control and diminish.
I think you muted yourself, Bob, or something.
Sorry.
I'm not sure what happened. I think
That call took his speaker out.
So you might, do they have to jump back out, come back in, Jay? Or do
We can hear him, but he's real low.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Yeah, you might have to jump out, come back, Bob.
Am I back or not?
You got it. Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, when my cell phone rings, it interrupts this. She knows exactly what she's doing, and she says things like being called a white supremacist is no different than using the N-word toward black people. Complete bullshit. White supremacist is a technical term. You are or you're not, or you're somewhere on the way to being one, or you're somewhere on the way to not being one. But it's not the same. It's not the same in any fashion. But what she's saying is, I'm okay with black people if they act the way I want them to, and if they carry the tone that I want them to, and if they're not too big, and if they're not too dark, and if they're not too loud, I'll be okay with them. But they got to act the way I expect them to act for me to be okay with them. And that's a message that is decades and decades and decades old, that's being carried forth by people like her. And it's being ignorantly carried forward by people that are different than her, who just say, oh, there's this big scary black man outside the door. And then you say, what did you say? There you go, saying that again. And they roll their eyes and say, I'm not being racist. Well, what are you being? I mean, what are you doing? What are you in fact doing? And what are we doing as we perpetuate that kind of language, that kind of story, that kind of norm? Yeah, I mean, I think we are talking something over here and doing something over here, saying something over here, perpetuating something over here. And again, as we talk about on this show all the time, until we are honest about what we are doing, and until we look in the mirror and go, I shouldn't be saying that. That's not fair. There's no basis for that. Until we call foul on that over and over and over and over again. And the problem is so many different aspects of our society and our culture, rather than stepping back from that, it seems to me they're piling on to that. And I don't know what to do about it, because it's so consistently denied. There's such denial around it. And you mentioned George Floyd earlier. George Floyd had video, so the denial couldn't stick. There was so much video, and it was in our faces, and so the denial could not stick. But in so many situations, we talked about that at breakfast with Bernard. The denial sticks. The examples that any of that you, Felton, Andre, Jay Dwayne, can Danya can talk about, the examples that you've experienced. Every one of those examples, whatever the example is that you've experienced, a white reaction is very typical. Is very common to just dismiss it. You read it wrong. You dismiss it. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. It wasn't this. It wasn't. You just dismiss it. And so, young Black guys, they have to grow up, figure out how to navigate it. And where is the model for navigating it? Where's the constructive model for navigating it?
That's the first part of the question that I think is answerable in the way that you just did. It is almost a brick to the face of a lack of care. Who really cares? Because if there was enough care, I believe that a reaction from whoever was in that crowd of reporters would have been audible. I believe that would have been one of the first things that was discussed with Jamal Bowman when, as he stated, you guys weren't even going to bring it up, it doesn't seem like. So that cake is baked very well. And Bob, to even further crystallize your point of how many decades this goes back, I often reference this work. I was writing a paper one time on white women and Black women, and how they either help protect Black men out of the whales, or they were a detriment. Rebecca Felton. So in that paper, I was doing my research, and I found this old book at UNC, published in like the 20s or something. And this person that interviewed some white women, older generationally speaking, white women down in Orange County or in Chapel Hill. And one of the younger white women was mentioning in like 1928, 29, whatever, that her grandmother had told her, you make sure you're back here in time because the boogeyman will get you. But the boogeyman was a Black man. You understand how many generations that has to filter through. And at what point do we wake up and say, that's never been the correct way to view another human being?
I think none of us have ever heard, oh, that big scary white guy. We never heard that. I've never heard that. I've never heard that. So I mean, but it's always, if there is a boogeyman out there, it's a big Black guy. It's always a big Black guy. It always has been a big Black guy. And the big white guy is more apt to be a teddy bear in the eyes of the white woman than scary.
Let me hear from Celeste, and then we'll go back around with another question. Celeste, do you need me to read the question, or you got it? I think you might have it.
Let's restate the question one time just to make sure I'm on point.
So, what are the societal ramifications of the perpetuation of stereotypes concerning Black men? I think you just wanted to see if I was going to mess up perpetuation again, but I'm on it now, so go ahead.
American society is funny about things like this because Black men get this very weird fetishizing stereotype of being desired and more sexually attractive, more sexually and lustfully desired. And like Black men want the physicality and the muscles and the tall, dark, and handsome, and white women want the sexual endeavors. But then in the same breath, you're scared of him. He's some big, ferocious sexual deviant. There's no good quality to him or about him. other than his physicality, and some depending on who you talk to. And he's scary. But when you sexually desired him, you weren't scared of his penis. So how do we get from one place to the other in the same demographic of individuals? And for me, it's one of those things where society loves Black men as long as they perpetuate a certain stereotype, as long as they're upholding white supremacy, as long as they're upholding patriarchy, as long as they are sexually enticing. And in the same breath, black men have the privilege of being men, but they lose most of their privilege when it comes to being Black. Society is very double-edged sword, two different mirrors when it comes to Black men. And I always struggle with this point, because how do you tell somebody to how do you teach a man how to navigate a world where he's loved and hated by both sides of somebody's brain? The same person has two totally different pragmatic feelings about an individual. And it comes down to a lot of what Lisa was talking about. Her sons were consistently underestimated in one thing and overestimated in another, because that's how it was supposed to be. Bob, when he references how Marjorie, and I just want to go ahead and put it out there, Marjorie is as foolish as you think she is. I have not had one person who has met her in real life say she said something articulate, she said something well put together, she said something with actual intelligence and facts behind it. But what Bob is saying about her is 1000% right, but I think it applies to more of America than just the white woman. Even white men have some type of, I'm not going to say all, but I'm going to say some, a lot of white men have a weird fetish when it comes to Black men, whether it be sexual, visual, appearance wise, just in how they feel a room full of women react to it. Exactly. It's society when it comes to Black men. It's honestly time to grow out of being scared, because as Bob stated, if we actually look back through the history of America, white men have committed more violent crimes against women and against men, because whenever we talk about sexual crimes of slavery and things like that, we leave out one very big piece, and that is buck breaking was very well practiced on all slave plantations in the Deep South for hundreds of years, and we conveniently like to skip over it. We skip over the fact that white men were sexually abusing Black men too in the times of Jim Crow. Like, cutting off a penis to hang somebody from a tree sounds like sexual deviancy to me. Tons of Black men were gang raped by white Klansmen and different white men in the time, and the shame required them to keep it to themselves. So when we're looking at society and how they treat Black men as a whole, like Bob said, I feel like as a society, we need to take a step back, and we need to look at the stereotypes. We need to look at the shame that Black men have to hide. We need to look at the continuous facade of strength that a lot of Black men have to put on to make it. We have to look at the fact that a lot of Black men who have a lot of pride have to hang their head low just to make it through the day. Society has beaten down and berated Black men in a way that I want to say in most cases animals can get treated better. But society turns around and hypes Black men up just enough to make them feel like there is some type of power, some type of pedestal, something that they have to protect that pushes them and makes it beneficial for them to quote unquote stay in their place. Like the Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, for example. That is a big Black man. He is probably 400 pounds. Me and him got into an argument at Brown Recreation Center during the primary. That man is big. If he did not portray a caricature that made white people feel uncomfortable, they would call the police on him every time he got upset. When he first stepped onto the political scene at a city council meeting in Guilford County and a school board meeting, half of the white women said that they needed to call the police on him because he got irate. Those white women turned around and voted for him in the 2020 election cycle.
When they heard what he said, they had to hear him, right?
But he made, like, once they got comfortable with him because he portrayed what they needed to hear, the fear went away. And honestly, the fear is still there because every time he raises his voice in the General Assembly or gets too worked up at an event, the white women take a step back and clutch their pearls. But because he's saying what their husbands and what some of them really want to hear, they let it slide because he's a safe one. And how he was treated versus how he is treated now is the perfect example of you can be loved only if you're foolish. You can be loved only if you show yourself not to be strong. You can be loved and appreciated by the white crowd if you uphold the biased, racist, and straight up and down disrespectful beliefs that they consistently have about Black men. Society is a double-edged sword, but that double-edged sword will support you and swing for you as long as you make them feel good. It's always about how you make them feel, not how you actually are.
Yeah, it's a razor's edge. I like everything you unpacked there. Okay, I'm coming to you, Bob, but I want to make time is going to get away from us, and I want us to really get to this next question because I think it's critically important to what you were literally framing your whole conversation around, Celeste, because it is a complex thing to be a Black man in America and to be shaped and molded by society when you're not included in it in the way that makes sense for you to be fully realized. Go ahead, Bob.
So I want you and Andre and Jay Dwayne to comment on this, but in the rest of the conversation. But I completely agree with everything Celeste said, with the exception of one thing. I do not think Black men have the male privilege. I think Black women have more privilege in our culture than Black men. And I'll be interested in the response of everyone as we move on.
Yeah, I'll begin. I think my position is well known in this audience, but I'll state it with this caveat. Again, I want it understood. This is not a competition of miseries or some type of statement that's not one I've paid attention to from a historical perspective, from the facts. The decimation of the Black man has always been a thing that's more likely to happen before the decimation of a Black woman. Now, I'm not removing the sexual deviancy that was definitely experienced in mass, especially during slavery and during the Jim Crow era. Psychologically speaking, it is a whole nother twist to be a man in that capacity and know that you can't protect your woman. We know that enslaved Black men went to other plantations just so they didn't have to be around the woman that they may really like, just so it would be a visit, so they wouldn't have to endure and observe their woman being accosted in some way. So there's a whole nother psychology behind that. There's a whole nother psychology behind having to watch your mother endure or experience, and you can't even protect her. So there's a whole nother psychology around all this. But again, it's easily documented and calculatable. Black men endured the decimation, the destruction, the body being ripped apart, the murder, the brutality, and all of the other psychological ramifications. I say that because it's a fact, not because I'm trying to compare what one sex endured over the other. But we do understand in this society today, I think it's also not debatable that there's a more welcoming presence and a more celebratory energy behind Black women for reasons that are just still for the suppression and understanding that Black men, man, who really cares? I think that's a lot of the energy that we have to endure. That's the headwind for us. Matter of fact, appreciate that interjection, Bob. We'll take this question to the guys, and then we'll go around the room with the other question and get out of here. Go ahead, Jay. You can respond to that.
Man, it's so much that Celeste said too that kind of goes into that. But to answer Bob's question directly, I think that the Black male position, period, in society, no matter what front it is, has been used as a pun. kind of adding to what Celeste said, we are conveniently used. So yes, do we reap male privilege? To a certain extent, yes, when it's convenient for our non-Black counterpart. However, when we look at humanity as a whole, it is strictly a pawn. Going back to what Felton said, like, yes, they'll say, oh, we got men here, but we're only used whenever it's a service. Our thoughts are not considered. Our humanity is rarely considered in any space. So which goes back to my first statement. Yes, there's a whole society and community infrastructure that is built that around excluding the Black male's humanity. Yes, sexually, like what she's saying, sexually, like, it's so interesting. Being a big Black man, I do get, it's a lot of women that, throw their shot. And it's usually the same ones who claim to be afraid of other ones, but say, I'm so comfortable around you. You're only comfortable because you have a mission in mind. You're not comfortable with my thoughts. You're not comfortable with what I bring to the table. You only comfortable with what you assume that I could do in the bedroom. And that happens on so many areas. They hire you in positions because of what you may have on paper or how you may look and how you may fit a mold, but they did not hire you to speak. They did not hire you to have thought. They did not hire you to have action. So it's really frustrating because on one hand, we can see how male privilege does exist in our society, but we also feel like there is some type of infrastructure that robs us of actually participating in it and benefiting from it. It seemed like everyone who's around us will. Just like when people say, well, you a man, you can do this. So all of a sudden, my manliness, even by our same counterparts, are taken into account only when a service is provided. Dare not think, dare not try to provide. We are always perceived as the lesser human. And that's completely frustrating. I'm going to stop there because I'm getting hyped.
Get hype, brother. I totally co-sign the majority of what you said. I still think it is a lot of mythology concerning Black males' access to any masculinity, let alone toxic masculinity in this society. It is.
I agree.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's a. That had a really wonderful clip some time ago. I think I sent you that show, Jay, a while ago, and it was a really, really good clip where a woman spoke on the fact that that's a myth. There's never been an established masculinity for Black men in the society or any access to the patriarchy. Andre, go ahead and tell me your thoughts on that.
So I will tell you, I'm going to thank my friend Lisa McMillan for inviting me to this because you guys got me thinking really deeply here. So I'm going to agree with Bob. And then I was sitting here listening to you all and trying to contemplate how I was going to answer this question as you went around the room. So I'm trying to figure out, well, why do I agree with him? Why? Maybe it's the fact that I as a Black man, I don't think I've ever felt like I had some type of privilege because I was a man. I didn't. I was a Carl Rowan scholar, and if you guys know who Carl Rowan is, he sent me to a private liberal arts college. I was one of 10 Blacks at the entire school, and only 2 males. GW Law School, I was married one of 30 something. I'm trying to think if I ever thought I had a privileged situation, and I can't think of one. And the other side of it is I did have for most of my life, I had a single mother with 6 older sisters. So I didn't get much privilege there either. So I'm trying to figure out, is it because of how I was raised or is it because of the other stuff? But I'll definitely say on top of all those things, I never saw it that way. And more to the point of something Bob said, for right or wrong or whatever, and maybe it's a stereotype. Maybe society has drummed this into my head so long about how my Black sisters, my queens, have had to hold it down for so many years because we're such horrible, non-human like people. Is it that stereotypes have been painted majority of my life? Is why I think they're in a better status than me? Could it be that? I don't know. I just know when this phone call ends in like 20 minutes or so, I'll probably be up half the night trying to figure out why the hell do I agree with Bob. I do, but I'm the type of person I'm going to sit here and try to figure out why. and yeah, that's going to bother me. So thank you, Lisa. But anyway, I'm going to continue to think about it. But that's my answer.
It's
Man,
because of
glad to
racism.
have you.
It's
Glad
because
to
of
have you.
racism.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jake.
It's because of racism you believe in Bob.
So yeah, that's the answer to all questions in our society. We fully embrace the social construct of race. But no, Andre, you're welcome here, man, and I'm glad to have you. And that's what this is all about, man. Just putting some new wrinkles on your brain if you can, and really being challenged to question and react to this thing called life. And our shared existence. I'm coming right to you, Celeste. I promise you. This is the last prompt, because the last question will not be in the realm of what we were just discussing, which I think is a bigger discussion. So final thoughts is what this is going to be. Please keep them to about 45 seconds, or let's do this. Keep them to a minute, and as best you can. But I do want to hear what you have to say, Celeste. And I'm coming to you, Bob. Final thoughts.
Oh, I thought you was giving the prompt real quick.
Oh no, the prompt, it would be about media's role in this, but we don't have time. We don't have time to really unpack it. Speak on whatever you wanted to speak on, and we can just get out of here with final thoughts.
I was going to say what Bob said is very much what it seems like when it comes to Black women and Black men. Like in a corporate workspace, white men tend to garner to Black women more because of the similar personality types. Black women have been made to be the leader of their family and the leader of their community, and white men are usually the head of their household and a leader in their community, whether it be church, special events, little league, all of that. And the reality is, you guys won't know it because you are men, but the way that you all are approached and talked to by other men of different races, while it can take a volatile and shaky turn, other men approach you all with more respect than they will approach me with at first. You guys, they might be afraid to shake your hand. They might not greet you when you walk into a room, but you all will probably never walk into a room in a business professional outfit and get told, hey sugar, you must be here for lunch with me, or something weird. Men respect, I'm not even going to say, I feel like respect is a strong word, but I can't think of another word to analogize it. Men respect other men. Let me rephrase that. Men respect other straight men. Straight men respect other straight men, usually in a way that they don't respect Black women or women in general. Like, it's one of those things where it's very much a race thing, but yes, I'm Black, but I'm a woman too. And for women in general, there will always be a very weird energy that we know we cannot combat or step into, because yes, I'm Black and that comes with its own things, but in normal American society, I mean, shoot, as we're seeing right now, even though I'm a Black woman and I'm strong and I'm independent and I can carry a conversation and I can take a room and I can do this and do that and all these things that they say I can do as a Black woman, I'm still a second class citizen in a lot of men's minds.
So
Black men,
we got it. Yeah, we got to.
go
ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to rush you, but I want to get your final point out.
And Black men are beat down, looked down on, and they're second class citizens in their own right. But Black men still do get to experience that odd respect that comes with being male that I will never be able to experience. And then you throw in it that I'm Black too. And it's a whole other conversation.
It is. And I want to have that. You and I are going to have that conversation, because there's a lot that I would like to flesh out. I don't want to necessarily think it's a debate or a challenge, because some of it's subjective and some of it is just this monolithic portrayal that Black men have to encounter and endure. When one of us does something, it's reflected more so upon Black men than it is upon any other. And I firmly believe that we have to deal with that characterization, that response that society has for whatever little infraction or major infraction that one Black man has. Now we got to carry that weight and that burden. even in those spaces that you think we might be more received just because we got a suit on. But we're going to have that discussion, Celeste. That's going to be our special show in like 3 weeks or so. Really quickly, guys, because I got another meeting to hit up. So final thoughts, 30 seconds or less. Bob.
Yes, you and Celeste and I need to have that conversation in 3 weeks, but I won't be here. So y'all have the conversation.
It'll be the sequel. Lisa, final thoughts.
My final thought is thank you, Celeste, excuse me, for pointing out something that I did not consider. I am a lover of W.E.B. Du Bois and his double consciousness concept. So now within the framework of a Black man, is there a triple consciousness? So thank you for bringing that out, because like Andre, I will be considering that for the rest of the night, and then I'll be calling my beautiful Black sons and praying for my beautiful ex-husbands. But I will be considering how I can support my Black men better because of that perspective.
Awesome. Andre, final thoughts.
My final thoughts, I know we're going to get to it probably on a future show, but here's my thoughts. Yep, a lot to do with the media. And so I'm going to say is this. I have a home in Lake Spivey outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And I will tell you, I see more of Taylor Greene on CNN and these national news channels than we ever talked about her in Georgia. And I think there's a reason for that. And I will tell you, if you really look into it, she's from a really small area. I don't think she had any competitors even running in that damn race. And I think she's propped up by the media on purpose, but they don't play that around Atlanta. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. Don't get confused.
Yeah, her coverage is fascinating, but it's a mix of the blonde haired and it's a mix of the Trump coattails. This is what sells. Jay, give me your final thoughts before we get out of here.
My final thoughts is I missed y'all. I love y'all. I'm glad I saw y'all. Andre, you're a brother now, so just go on and stay around. But the other thing is intersectionality does exist with Black males, but is rarely talked about. And we're often left out of this conversation. And this is a multi-layered conversation that really deals with intersectionality with being a Black male.
Amen. The whataboutism is rampant when it comes to speaking specifically about Black American issues as a whole. The whataboutism becomes deafening and blinding when it comes to Black males. It is never easy to stay and remain focused on conversations or energies towards uplift of specifically Black men. It's amazing how easy it is to find something else to distract you. Shiny things, I guess. Hey, listen, wonderful discussion. I hate we don't have more time to keep going with it, but we always got another episode, and I think this is one where we're going to definitely have to come back because I think basically got through one question. Thank you all. Appreciate you. Celeste, Bob, Lisa, Andre, welcome. Jay Dwayne, Danya, thanks for doing what you do. Y'all have a wonderful night. Take care, and we'll see you in 3 weeks.